The rain hit the windows so hard it sounded like the sky was trying to break. Into the church, 19-year-old Ava Monroe stood alone in a white wedding dress that didn't feel like hers, staring at her reflection with trembling hands. Her mascara had smudged hours ago, but nobody cared enough to fix it. Not the wedding planner, not the guests whispering behind polished smiles, and certainly not the man waiting for her at the altar, billionaire CEO Ethan Caldwell, her boss, a man nearly 15 years older than her. A man who looked at business contracts the way most people looked at grocery lists. And tonight, he was becoming her husband. Not because of love, not because of fate, but because Ava's mother needed a life-saving surgery they could never afford. 3 weeks earlier, Ava had been balancing college, applications, and late-night diner shifts while trying to keep eviction notices hidden from her sick mother. Then one terrible afternoon, her mother collapsed in their tiny apartment kitchen. The diagnosis came fast. Heart failure. Without immediate surgery, she wouldn't survive the year. Ava remembered sitting in the hospital hallway, unable to breathe, while doctors discussed numbers she could never pay. $200,000. It might as well have been $2 billion. Then Ethan Caldwell walked into her life like a storm in an expensive suit. He owned the hotel where Ava worked part-time cleaning executive offices at night. She barely spoke to him before that day. Men like him didn't notice girls like her, but he noticed her crying outside the ICU. "What happened?" he asked quietly. She tried to wipe her face quickly. "Nothing." "That doesn't look like nothing." Something about his voice broke her remaining strength. The words spilled out before she could stop them. "My mom is dying." Ethan listened without interrupting. No fake sympathy, no awkward pity, just silence. The next morning, Ava was called into his office on the top floor of Caldwell Enterprises. The room alone was bigger than her entire apartment. Ethan stood near the window overlooking Manhattan. "I'll pay for the surgery," he said. Ava stared at him in shock. "What?" "I'll cover every medical expense. Recovery, rehabilitation, all of it." Her knees nearly gave out. "Why would you do that?" He turned toward her slowly. His expression looked exhausted somehow, even behind all the wealth and control. "Because I need something too." That was the moment everything changed. His grandfather, founder of the Caldwell Empire, was dying. And before handing Ethan full control of the company inheritance, there was one condition: marriage. The old man believed Ethan's cold lifestyle made him unfit to lead the family legacy alone. A temporary marriage would satisfy the requirement. 1 year, no romance, no expectations. In exchange, Ava's mother would live. Every instinct screamed at her not to agree. But desperation has a way of making impossible choices feel inevitable. So now she stood in the church trembling, while strangers admired floral arrangements that cost more than her childhood home. The music started. The doors opened, and Ava walked toward the man who had changed her life with a single sentence. Ethan looked devastatingly calm in his black tuxedo. Yet when she reached the altar, she noticed something unexpected in his eyes. Not arrogance, sadness. Deep, hidden sadness. The ceremony passed in a blur. The vows sounded distant. The applause felt hollow. By nightfall, Ava found herself inside Ethan's enormous penthouse overlooking the glowing city skyline. Her new home, though it didn't feel like home at all. A staff member showed her to the master bedroom before quietly leaving. Ava sat on the edge of the massive bed, unable to stop shaking. She knew what people expected from a wedding night. And despite the contract, despite the arrangement, fear wrapped around her chest like chains. A few minutes later, the bedroom door opened. Ethan stepped inside. He loosened his tie slightly when he noticed how tense she looked. "You don't have to look terrified," he said gently. "I'm trying not to." For the first time all day, something almost like a smile touched his face. Then he walked toward her, holding a small wooden box. Dark walnut. Simple. Unexpected. He placed it carefully in her hands. Ava frowned. "What is this?" "Open it." Her fingers trembled as she lifted the lid. Inside were dozens of folded papers. Confused, she looked up. "I don't understand." Ethan sat across from her, keeping a respectful distance. "They're letters." "Letters?" "To you." Ava blinked. "What?" "One for every week of the next year." She stared at him in disbelief. "You wrote these?" "Yes." "Why?" His answer came quietly. Because I didn't want your first year of marriage to feel like a prison sentence. Ava carefully unfolded one letter. Her eyes moved across the handwritten words. If today scared you, I'm sorry. You deserved love when you walked down that aisle, not pressure. I can't change why this happened. But I promise you this. You will always have freedom in this house. No matter what the world thinks, I will never take your choices away from you. Ava's throat tightened painfully. Nobody had spoken to her like that before. Nobody had cared enough to think about her fear. There's something else, Ethan said softly. She looked up. The room across the hall is yours. Separate bedroom, separate space. You can lock the door if you want. Tears burned behind her eyes before she could stop them. You don't even know me, she whispered. His expression darkened slightly. I know what it feels like to lose control of your life. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Ava noticed something inside the box beneath the letters. A photograph. She pulled it out carefully. It showed a smiling young woman standing beside Ethan years earlier. Beautiful, warm, happy. Ava looked at him questioningly. My sister, he said. The words came rougher now. She died when she was 19. Ava froze. The same age as you. He looked away toward the city lights. She got sick. I had money, connections, doctors. But I still couldn't save her. Pain cracked through his controlled voice. After she died, I buried myself in work because it hurt less than grieving. Ava suddenly understood the sadness she'd seen in his eyes at the altar. This wasn't a cruel billionaire buying a wife. This was a broken man trying to save someone after failing to save the person he loved most. She used to volunteer at shelters, Ethan continued quietly. She believed kindness mattered more than success. I used to think she was naive. He glanced at Ava. Then I saw you at the hospital crying for your mother instead of yourself. Ava's chest tightened. You reminded me of her. Tears slid down her cheeks silently. For the first time since this nightmare began, she didn't feel trapped. She felt seen. The weeks that followed slowly transformed both of them. Ethan kept every promise. He never crossed boundaries, never pressured her. Every Monday morning, Ava found a new letter waiting outside her door. Some were funny, some thoughtful, some heartbreakingly honest. One simply read, I hope one day you laugh loudly in this house. It's been too quiet for years. Meanwhile, Ava brought something back into Ethan's world he thought was gone forever. Warmth. She convinced him to visit his employees instead of hiding behind executives. She started organizing food drives using unused hotel resources. She spent afternoons talking with janitors and receptionists everyone else ignored. And slowly, Ethan changed. Employees noticed first. Then the media. The cold billionaire who once terrified, boardrooms began funding children's hospitals and housing programs anonymously. But the biggest change happened in private. He smiled more. He slept better. And sometimes, late at night, Ava caught him reading old letters from his sister with tears in his eyes. Months later, Ava's mother fully recovered. The contract no longer felt necessary, which terrified Ava more than the marriage ever had. Because somewhere along the way, she had fallen in love with the man she never expected to trust. But love felt dangerous, temporary, like happiness always came with an expiration date. Then came the night everything nearly fell apart. Ava accidentally overheard board members discussing Ethan. He married that girl for appearances. She was just a charity case. The marriage ends next month anyway. The words shattered her. Humiliation burned through her chest. Maybe she had imagined everything. Maybe the letters, the kindness, the tenderness. It had all been guilt. That night, she packed her bags quietly. She placed the wooden box of letters carefully on the bed. Then she left. But before she reached the elevator, Ethan's voice echoed behind her. Ava! She turned. He looked terrified. Not angry. Terrified. Why are you leaving? Her voice cracked. Because I finally remembered this marriage isn't real. Pain crossed his face instantly. Who told you that? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Tears streamed down her face now. You don't owe me anything anymore. My mom is okay. The contract is almost over. Ethan stared at her for several seconds before walking forward slowly. Then he said the one thing she never expected. I tore up the contract 3 months ago. Ava froze. What? I should have told you sooner. Her breath caught. Why would you do that? His eyes filled with emotion. Because somewhere between your terrible coffee and your habit of talking to every lonely person in a room. You became my home. Ava couldn't breathe. I didn't save your mother because I wanted a wife, he said shakily. I did it because losing people destroys you, and I couldn't watch it happen again. He stepped closer. But loving you? His voice broke completely. That part was never part of the deal. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Ava burst into tears as Ethan wrapped his arms around her carefully, like she was something precious instead of temporary. And standing there beneath the soft golden lights of the penthouse lobby, the billionaire and the 19-year-old girl finally understood something neither money nor power could buy. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones who rescue us from poverty or pain. Sometimes they're simply the ones who remind us we are worthy of being loved gently. And in the end, the most valuable thing Ethan Caldwell ever placed into Ava Monroe's hands on their wedding night wasn't wealth. It was safety. It was kindness. It was the first real home either of them had ever known,